Right now, one of my favorite writers and one of my favorite conversationalists. We love having him on. He is Victor Davis Hanson of the Hoover Institution. His latest column, you can find it over at American Greatness. It's it's an important headline. Are Americans becoming Sovietized? VDH, thanks for being here on a Friday. Good to talk with you.
Thank you for having me, Larry.
Well, so now you use the word Sovietized here, not socialist, not democratic socialist or what have you. You specifically talk about the Soviet system. Lay that out for me here.
Yeah, I'm not interested really in this particular piece, whether about their ideology, just their methodology. And it's very scary because we're doing the same things that they did. They renamed names, they knocked down statues, they airbrushed photos, and we're doing that. They canceled people out. They were run by a corrupt elite whose wealth and privilege never really synced with their egalitarian or redistribution propaganda. That's sort of like LeBron from his estate or Oprah from her greater mansion telling us about, discrimination and lack of privilege and all that stuff, or Mark Zuckerberg. And also, their Pravda was their official megaphone, and that had fused with the government. It wasn't really a press. The journalist was an extension of the apparatchik. And then they unleashed everybody. They created a climate of fear so that while it was ostensibly ideological, if you wanted a promotion or that guy across the hallway had a better job than you, then you ratted him out as a traitor to the cause, sort of like what we're doing on the electronic lynch mob, or we're going on the internet searching somebody who's successful, what they said or what they did 10 years ago. I could go on, but you get the impression that we're sort of like characters in 1984. They're watching this, and nobody seems to be aware of what they're doing.
You could go on. In fact, you list out 10 different things, but I want to dwell a little bit on the very first one because it hits close to home here, and it becomes a constant theme as because this isn't just a political talk show, as you know, and we talk about sports, we talk about entertainment, we talk about all the things that are important to us, and one thing that so many of us lament is that you can't escape politics. You can't escape the agenda of the left. It has now permeated everything. And as you lay it out here about the Sovietization of America, number one, there was no escape from ideological indoctrination anywhere. I read that and I felt a chill because that's exactly what we're experiencing, sir.
I turn on a commercial, it's politicized. I read an article about a cartoon or an animated film, it's politicized. I read about who got a vaccination, who didn't, it's politicized. Everything is sports, politicized, Wall Street politicized, CEOs politicized, foundations, K through 12, it's all politicized. It's just like the Soviet Union. There's no escape from it. And all of the levers of influence in our society as they were under the Soviets have been politicized, or weaponized, I guess is a better word, because education is the same as in the Soviet Union. It's not inductive anymore, it's deductive.
Yeah, in fact, let's pivot now to education. So many of us, I think, right now are focusing on the government-run schools. Some of us have for a while, but this last year, because of the pandemic and the stay-at-home schooling, I think that it's drawn more focus on what's going on with how the governments are running these schools. We made it a deal some point over 100 years ago that we would all use our tax dollars on a state-by-state basis, and the government would be responsible and make access a public school system for all of our kids if we choose to use it. But what's happened recently with that curriculum is really causing people to rethink that paradigm, I think.
I think it is too. When this all started, I thought to myself, they can change the country in 10 years if they focus on an 8-year-old in second grade or 7-year-old in first grade and have them indoctrinated till they get out of high school. Then the point won't be they won't like America's tradition. They just simply won't know what they are. They completely erased from their memory, or they never even were deposited in their memory banks. And so I said to myself, these guys are really going to go after homeschooling. They're going to go after charter schools. They're going to go after parochial schools. They have to if they're going to control this, and that's what they're doing. And they're either trying to ban them or they're going into those avenues, and they're trying to warp them or flip them from the inside so that they're woke too. And then they don't think there's anything wrong, just like the Soviets. It's, you know what? We have a noble ends of egalitarianism, only we call it equity now.
Yeah.
And any means necessary or justified. Even our awards, you really believe, your listeners believe that the Emmy or the Tony or the Grammy or the Oscar is given to the one with the most creative artistic accomplishment that year? I don't. They're sort of like orders of the Soviet medal of the great citizen of the Soviet Union, or in honor of your ideological achievement, but they're based on criteria other than the best movie, the best song, the best play, or the best film or drama.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a great observation. It really is. And Victor Davis Hanson has put all these observations about these disturbing trends, very rapidly moving disturbing trends, by the way, in our society and in our culture, in a column at American Greatness. The headline is, "Are Americans Becoming Sovietized?" You also talk about the surveillance state here, and especially this latest story that the Biden administration might be contracting out to private firms to conduct domestic surveillance, and again, this is a page right out of the Soviet playbook.
It is, and that's something that I don't think conservatives have quite appreciated. That because we say we want to privatize, but they're outsourcing. So they're telling private firms, "You guys are more woke than we are in the government, and we have certain restrictions at Homeland Security, but you don't. So we're going to hire you to surveil." Or, we're registrars and we're registrars during the election, and we can't do something. We have limited budget. But if Mark Zuckerberg wants to give us $500 million and bring his employees in, we're going to kind of, make them like honorary deputy sheriffs out west, and we're going to employ them to put drop boxes and get out the vote. And that's what he did. And it really shows you, and everything is woke. John Brennan's CIA, what's left of it is not really, when you look at the commercials they're having for recruitment, or the FBI going after Rudy Giuliani's records, or a couple in Washington, or the IRS under Lois Lerner and her successors. So a lot of conservatives, I think, are going to readjust their view of the retired military, the CIA, the FBI. They thought they were bastions of patriotism, traditionalism, adherence to the Constitution. And I think they're going to see that the left targeted them because they have chains of command, and they can bring instant social change without the mess of legislative back and forth.
It's funny. I hear Rand Paul and Ron Paul's voice. Actually, at the time, I guess it was more Ron Paul's voice in my ear post 2001, post 9/11. As I was very much in favor of many of the measures that were put in place, Victor Davis Hanson. I think you were too, probably, because we recognized
Absolutely.
what an existential threat we had in an enemy with the radical Islamist terrorists. And I remember Ron Paul's voice say, you give the power to the government, you give the state this kind of power to surveil and to root out enemies. Look what's going to happen when those powers are now in the hands of people who you might not agree with. And boy, oh boy, are we feeling it now.
Yeah, I think the left was very brilliant. They took the university over, and 95% of the faculty of the administration is far left. The students are mostly indoctrinated. And that's been a reversal in my view, but it's also, I was kind of a believer, I am a believer in the Enlightenment and education, but what is in the university now is not inductive empirical education. It's almost contrast. So 65% of Americans don't have a BA, and I always thought we should increase that number so they would have BAs. I'm not sure that's right now. I think the 65 who haven't been in the university and haven't listened to the professors or quit when they saw what they were talking about, they're the people with their finger in the dike. They're the people who are saying, you know what, there's a real practical world out there. I'm a muscular laborer, or I'm a salesman, or I have to deal with reality. And what you guys have learned and what you've been stamped with those degrees in the university is not reality. And so I've really radically changed my view, because I grew up on a farm with working class people. I was always told, go to the university, make something of yourself, and get educated. And I did. But the more as you get older, you see the people who didn't do that and so-called were not enlightened had a more earthy realism. And at least the people in the university, that increasingly, if those are the people who are coming out in the Antifa demonstrations, or the people on CNN, or the people who lecture you, something went really wrong with the idea of the Enlightenment, and part of it's, I guess, the loss of faith, or the idea you can explain everything by pure logic or something. I don't know what it was, but that's another area I've really changed my views on.
Our guest is Victor Davis Hanson, and if I can shift to one other column that you've just written, it's at victorhanson.com. It focuses on, you're a Californian, and Hoover Institution, of course, is in California. That's where you sort of hang your hat. By most examinations of where the Golden State is headed right now, it's not on a good course. In fact, they just, for the first time in the history of California, lost a congressional seat because more people are leaving that state because of its current state. And you make a very compelling and terrifying case that what's going on in California is now basically being adopted nationwide, or at least by the administration. I mean, if you're President Biden and you're trying to figure out, okay, which of the 50 states can we model for our federal approach, why would they pick California?
Well, I don't think they think like you and I do and your
That's
listeners.
For sure.
I think they think, I don't really care whether high-speed rail works or not. I don't really care whether you get a bang for your buck when you have the highest basket of taxes and the worst freeways or the worst school scores or the highest power rates, or you don't have water storage. I care about that there's a redistribution process going on, that you have the highest taxes, that you're confiscating income, that 1% of the taxpayer households pay half of the income tax. That's what I like. So what I'm going to judge California is, to what degree do you have the greatest number of people on entitlement, or the greatest number of people that aren't paying any state income tax, or the highest sales tax, and the greatest redistribution. And the irony, of course, is when you do that and control the government and don't allow private enterprise to build homes or to use their initiative or their curiosity, their talent, you get a medieval society. We're the most backward society in terms of wealth distribution of anywhere.
Yeah.
But they don't talk about that.
And you make one final point here in your column that I wish everybody running in this recall in California would digest, echo, and repeat. And I doubt you'd mind if they didn't give you credit. Everyone talks about the housing crisis in California, and that's a problem nationwide too, but it's worse in California than anywhere else. They talk about how expensive it is to build a house there. And meanwhile, and I'm sure this number is correct, it's incredible, 60 million dead trees rotted over the last 4 years in the Sierra Nevada forest in California, and that was basically part and parcel of the biggest reason why we had those horrible forest fires. Imagine if we could have cut those trees and turned it into lumber and built some houses with them.
You know, I wrote a lot of columns about that, and I'd always get a very sad letter from a former lumber employee or timber owner or small business, and they'd say, Mr. Hanson, you got that wrong. We can't harvest them because there is no more timber industry. They destroyed it. And they would write me in these long, anguished letters, and then they would say, they say, well, there's not enough Douglas fir that died. They're all pine. When pine was used, they can grind it up. They could use it for plywood. They were all species of trees that had value if we had a timber industry. But if you go back and look at the LA Times, take one example, you'll see articles written on how this is good to let them rot because they're going to crumble and they're going to create an ecosystem full of worms and woodpeckers and bugs, and everybody will feed on them. And then there'll be a fire, and this is a natural habitat, and this will discourage people from living in the forest. So it wasn't just, it
wasn't by accident.
It was it was planned. And then the deplorables who went up to the foothills and lived there, that was their fault. If they want to live there, then that's tough. Nature's going to pay them back for daring to get into the area. And so it's sad. It's the same thing with natural gas, and it's the same thing with mining. It's the same thing with timber. We want all that stuff. We want granite counters. We want stainless steel refrigerators. We want our Mercedes. We want to fill up. But we don't want to produce that stuff because we produce Facebook and we produce Google, and we have all trillions of dollars coming in, and therefore we can afford to let grimy other people produce that bad stuff that we, in the end up loving and want.
And people wonder why there's a recall effort in California right now. Real fast, and I do mean real fast, I only have about a minute left, but I think you could answer quickly. You say at some point a middle-class populist is going to have to emerge and save the state of California. Could that person be Caitlyn Jenner?
It could be him, and I haven't got a good view at the other candidates, but I think all of them are going to have one common theme. Power is too high, gas is too high, housing is too high, taxes are too high, and we get nothing in return. We don't get good roads, and we do not get good schools, and we do not get good policing, and we do not get good district attorneys. So life is getting bad, but it's getting costly. And that's going to be the theme of all the candidates, because it's true.
As this story progresses in California and nationwide, for that matter, Victor Davis Hanson will be our go-to voice there on the ground. I hope more people are listening. Victor Davis, always good to talk with you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.